So Snow Brothers is one of those classic arcade games from back in the day that borrowed heavily from Taito's classic Bubble Bobble, offering up a mix of platform and capture action that was pretty good at separating you from your money at the time. It saw a re-release that you can see here as Snow Brothers Special back in 2022 with a fresh coat of graphics paint, and now it's gone 3D with Snow Brothers Wonderland. Now look, the transition of a 2D game to 3D is always a challenging affair, with lots of games delivering an experience that's more, well, Bubsy 3D than it is Mario 64, if you know what I mean. Developers Clear River Games have instead opted to model more around something like Super Mario 3D World or the Pac-Man World games here, smaller levels making up a semi-cohesive whole. You're still pummeling foes with snow to turn them into snowballs, because that's the Snow Brothers experience, to crush around the world to complete levels, but with more of a kind of isometric spin to it. And look, all of that is conceptually fine. I'm totally on board with reimagining a classic game in a new way, because you really can strike riches that way. But I don't quite think that Snow Brothers Wonderland gets there for a couple of reasons. Now, visually on first glance, Snow Brothers Wonderland is fine if somewhat unexceptional. It borrows from the classic game's iconography and audio to deliver an experience that certainly looks like Snow Brothers for the most part. But there are issues. Some of the animation could be a little bit better. It does support multiplayer, up to 4 players, which seems super exciting, were it not for the fact that it focuses in on a single player at a single time. The engine only seems capable of this. So what happens if you go off screen? You go off screen. You can then teleport in screen at any time, but you can wander around causing all kinds of damage to yourself with no real idea what you're doing, and that's super frustrating. It just doesn't work well, and this seems daft to me because we've had split-screen games of this style for decades now. I mean, I think back to games like the original Toe Jam and Earl did this, and that was 30 plus years ago, as much as it frightens me to say that. It's true. Quite why a 2024 game can't do it absolutely befuddles me. In terms of play, there's a mix of play styles here. Some levels try for more of the all-out arcade action thing, while others take on what's more of a kind of considered puzzle aesthetic. The action sections are okay, but they lack the true hectic pace of the original, because for the most part, enemies have both predictable attack patterns and slow movement, so unless you're playing quite recklessly, the levels of danger here are really all that high. The shift to 3D does add some aiming challenges into the mix, but they're not always fun challenges in the same way that the original game was. And where the action parts really fall over is in the platforming sections. Now, of course, the original Snow Brothers had platform jumping on a 2D plane, but the combination of the viewpoint angle and some often less than responsive controls, at least on the Switch version, makes the platform jumping way less precise than it should be. And it made me really appreciate just how finely tuned Nintendo's approach in the Mario 3D World games is after playing Snow Brothers Wonderland, precisely because Wonderland's jumping just isn't that well geared. While the puzzle aspect isn't that complicated, you're hitting switches to make platforms move or lining up a snowball to hurl to defeat a line of enemies, it's actually the more satisfying part of the gameplay because it suits the slightly slower style a whole lot better. Now, I tested out the Switch version, and with due disclosure in mind, this was with a copy supplied to me by the publisher. That gets them a review, nothing else. And the big issue here, and this may not be an issue for the PlayStation and Steam versions, so on and so forth, but the big issue for the Switch version is because Snow Brothers Wonderland is broken up into smaller levels, you hit load screens a lot and you're left waiting there a lot. It breaks up the action as well, which is just, again, it's not great. So is Snow Brothers Wonderland a total disaster then? No. Honestly, this is just an average game. But outside the absolute Snow Brothers faithful, and I do know a couple of those, it doesn't feel really essential. If you want a Snow Brothers fix, I would actually go out and get Snow Brothers Special well ahead of Snow Brothers Wonderland.